It seems that global warming is frequently mentioned on the news. Every time it shows polar bears' habitats being threatened, yet the audience doesn't know how to help. The World Wildlife Fund has been established since 1961, and it allows citizens all over the world to contribute to their cause of protecting our unique animals and their habitats. Now is your chance to get involved. The goal of the World Wildlife Fund is to innovate new ways to conserve locations with unique species and plants both locally and globally. Their mission statement illustrates their diverse efforts to stop the degradation of our planet's natural environment and to build a future in which humans live in harmony with nature. This means that two of the World Wildlife main focuses revolve around biodiversity and footprints. Biodiversity takes priority because it focuses on conserving critical places and species to maintain their health and therefore keep them around in the future. The other focus of the World Wildlife Fund is ecological footprints. The goal is to reduce the negative impact of human activity so there are adequate natural resources in the air, on land, and in the water. In order to help protect these animals and their environments, the World Wildlife Fund has created 32 special places that are divided into priority locations. They are based on types such as deserts, forests, freshwater, marines, and mountains. Or they can be divided by continents such as Africa, Americas, Asia, Europe, and Oceania. The goal of special and priority locations is to protect the ecosystems that are irreplaceable. This is crucial because our ecosystem is interconnected with other parts of life. It is a priority to the World Wildlife Fund because humans are using more than 30% of natural resources than Earth is able to replenish. And if we continue at the rate we are going, it is expected by 2050 that we will be using more than twice as much natural resources as we should. The World Wildlife Fund has set up these priority locations because they need to focus their efforts since time is running out. The World Wildlife Fund is necessary to protect many species and their habitats, more so than ever today. All over the world, economic climates are shifting constantly. The threat of growing debt and inflation is diminishing the efforts of many countries to sustain their native wildlife. In Western Africa, for instance, government efforts to halt activities such as poaching of rhinos, cheetahs, lions, and other species are dwindling due to the lack of available capital. Many countries in Africa are also still engulfed in civil wars, and as a result, maintaining the native species has unfortunately fallen to the wayside. Also, due to rapid industrialization, areas in Central and South America are experiencing massive deforestation, such as around the Amazon and the Panama rivers, destroying the habitats of countless mammals, reptiles, and insects. The unforeseen consequences of deforestation include the demolition of destroying areas inhabited by undiscovered species. The World Wildlife Fund is the global outlet in providing assistance to areas where governments and other organizations cannot provide relief due to extraneous and economic variables. With all of these harms going on globally, the World Wildlife Fund has come up with a roadmap for a living planet which lays out their conservation strategy. First, they're saving biodiversity. The World Wildlife Fund is working to conserve biodiversity by protecting the Earth's most unique places and unique species on a global scale. On a more regional scale, there has been many national parks created to help preserve the animals and the plants. In the past 130 years, there have been more than 100,000 protected areas that have been established. However, while many of these protected areas are a start to helping, they are not enough because many of them aren't maintained properly, and there are some types of land that aren't being protected at all, such as swamps, marshes, and marine areas. There also needs to be more conservation of biodiversity because our environment is changing. It is bringing different harms to the animals and their habitats. For example, climate change, conservations of natural habitats, and diversion of water from rivers are all potential threats for marine life that isn't being protected enough. Secondly, there's reducing humanity's ecological footprint. Ecological footprints are ways to measure how much land and water is needed to provide the necessary resources for the people. In some countries, the footprint is less than the other because they are less industrialized. The U.S. leads in countries with the highest footprint. Third, there's tackling threats and drivers. A major threat is humans. We are clearing land for agriculture, building roads and houses. We're introducing tourism to their habitats, along with pollution and climate change. The work of the World Wildlife Fund directly works with these drivers to help conserve the animals and locations. However, that isn't enough. The only way to stop damaging these ecosystems is to directly work with governments at local and national levels. Lastly, it comes to pulling it all together. We have been able to identify all the ways to help conserve unique places and species. However, we have to get the results. The World Wildlife Fund is worldwide, meaning that it interacts with over 100 countries that are dedicated to helping our environment. While this organization may focus on global issues, it requires everyone from local governments to national governments, from scientists, business leaders, all the way to farmers, fishers, and indigenous people to get involved.
The World Wildlife Fund currently spends 84 cents on every dollar toward environmental sustainment and establishment efforts. The rest of its funds are directed toward fundraising and finance and administration costs. In the 2012 annual report provided by the World Wildlife Fund, the organization garnered over $244 million in total unrestricted revenue, gains, and support, $205 million of which went directly toward conservation field and policy programs and public education. In the past decade alone, the World Wildlife Fund has exponentially been able to increase its operating revenue and program spending growth due to its renowned global recognition as a center of promoting environmental sustainment efforts. A large sum of the World Wildlife Fund's operating revenue, over $90 million, comes from individual contributions, illustrating the growing concern and support of the world's primary inhabitants.